consciously aware of global iniquities, inequalities, lack of respect, exploitation. Mankind is now politically awakened and stirring. The combination of the two, a diversified global leadership, politically awakened masses, makes a much more difficult context for any major power, including, currently, the leading world power, the United States.
So humanity is awake and staring, as the Big News Brzezinski puts it, and the elite are concerned about this. They're dealing with it. If you're new to Zbigniew Brzezinski or this broadcast, he was the former national security advisor under Carter, and he's one of the true geostrategic visionaries for the elite. He, like others, works towards the one world government. In the 70s, he covertly helped put the Taliban into power to oppose the Soviets, and he has this whole long game for the grand chessboard, as he calls it, and how the American superpower is going to stave off Russia and China. But he's admitted that basically is failing. There are new emerging world powers, India, Brazil, China, Russia, among others. And though those powers are themselves changing America's hegemony over the world, the British, Anglo-American Empire, and the other players in NATO and so forth. And that's all part of his new book, Strategic Vision. And we've got an excerpt here from it where he continues to talk about the awakening of humanity as a major factor. Indeed, the changing distribution of global power and the new phenomenon of massive political awakening intensify, each in its own way, the volatility of contemporary international relations. That's an excerpt from his intro, as is this quote. With the foregoing in mind, this book seeks to respond to four major questions. So he's got four major questions in this book, and number one of these major questions is, what are the implications of the changing distribution of global power from west to east, and how is it being affected by the new reality of politically awakened humanity? Now, what are we really talking about here? What are the elite concerned about when we talk about this global political awakening of humanity? We're talking about people who are aware of their covert hidden agenda for a one world order. People have been talking about this for decades, since the 50s. The roots of it are even deeper, but now, thanks to the flow of information, thanks to the internet, a lot of people are awakened to it. These elitists are being confronted everywhere, and this really is and always has been an information war. The only difference is, in the past hundreds of years, the past thousands of years, it's always been the tiny niches of royalty, of kingships, of priest classes who held most of the important knowledge. Literacy was kept down amongst the masses in relation to this reason, but now we have worldwide literacy, even though a lot of people are pissing that away, and it's very sad. And that literacy comes at a time when we have this global internet age. We have a short window of time when a lot of people have the chance to know what's really going on with these global elites, see their power for what it is, and if we can, seek to change the dimensions of those power. Now, of course, other foreign powers, China, Russia, they're not the friends of humanity either. They're on the chessboard, though, and it's going to be important what decisions they make as well. Let's play a clip from Hillary Clinton admitting that they're losing the info war.
We are engaged in an information war. You know, during the Cold War, we did a great job in getting America's message out. After the Berlin Wall fell, we said, okay, fine, enough of that. You know, we've done it, we're done. And unfortunately, we are paying a big price for it. And our private media cannot fill that gap. In fact, our private media, particularly cultural programming, often works at counter purposes to what we truly are as Americans and what our values are. I remember we are in an information war, and we are losing that war. I'll be very blunt in my assessment. Al Jazeera is winning. The Chinese have opened up a global English language and multi-language television network. The Russians have opened up an English language network.
Now, she's talking on the one hand about foreign press and the whole U.S. Strategy to put out propaganda and try to influence people around the world. That's all important, but it also has to do with this information war taking place with individuals in the age of the internet, and that too is what the info war is really all about. So I want to encourage everyone out there who's already recognized the info war not to give up. We're having a huge effect. Truth is on our side. Truth is more important than ever. And how ironic is it that as the mainstream media dies, as these dinosaur outlets, newspapers and the mainstream networks are dying off and losing their influence, that these new foreign networks are also featuring patriots, speaking the truth, also featuring so-called conspiracy theorists, trying to tell it like it really is. Why does Al Jazeera have gaining influence? Because the U.S. and the Western forces are so full of lies on the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war. It doesn't really matter how credible Al Jazeera is. All they have to do is point out all the horrible things going on in these wars and the other provocations and the undermining of foreign policy. Those are the kind of issues that we're dealing with here, and I just want to encourage you to stay on the side of truth. With that in mind, we have a quote of the day. It's from George Orwell. You probably already know it, but it's worth keeping in mind. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And that's, of course, George Orwell, author of 1984, real name Eric Blair. He himself a Fabian socialist, but a disgruntled Fabian socialist who sought to expose them. Now, we have Jerome Corsi coming up on the other side of the break, but I want to tell you now, Alex is going on tour. He's going to speak at the Lakewood Theater in Dallas, Sunday, February 19th, and then he's going to speak in Orlando, Florida at the I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but it's up on the website. It's Sunday, February 26th, and we have a great promo that was put together by Rob Jacobson. We're going to play it here in the break and come back with Jerome Corsi. Stay tuned.
Greetings, fellow Info Warriors. Alex Jones here, announcing the first of many trips that I'm going to take across this wonderful United States that we live in. And we get so busy here at Infowars.com, the nightly news, the daily radio show, the documentary films, and all the other things we're doing that I tend to never go out and give speeches anymore. And I've got a lot of ideas bubbling around in my head about the history of the New World Order, what makes them tick and how to defeat them. So I'm titling this key speech I'm going to give. It'll run around 2 hours long, Blueprint to Defeat the New World Order. And we're also going to have a surprise premiere of a short documentary film we've been working on at the event. First off, I'm going to be going to Dallas, Texas, Sunday, February 19th, 2012, to the historic Lakewood Theater. And the next Sunday, February 26th, I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida. You can find out more about the events and buy tickets at Infowars.com/events. Now, unfortunately, every event I've ever had, we've had to turn people away. So get your tickets early at Infowars.com/events. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in this world. The craziest of all is this explosive awakening. I can't wait to meet you and shake your hand. I'll see you in Dallas and I'll see you in Orlando. Infowars.com/events. Yeah, I'm signing these evil 1776 flags. Doesn't get any more out of control than that, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty un-American what we're doing here at Infowars.com. I mean, not only are we promoting liberty, but we're selling 1776 flags. Now that is Al-Qaeda.
We are back from break. We're joined now by Dr. Jerome Corsi. He's got a PhD from Harvard. He's been the author of Unfit for Command, the Swiftboat book against John Kerry, and a whole lot more, including a North American Union book and so much other coverage. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
A great pleasure to be back with you. Thank you.
Now, you told us you've got a breaking story today just on money laundering and big Wall Street scandal stuff. Why don't you break it down for us?
It's a very top story at WND.com, the Skyline story. There's a whistleblower that's contacted WND I've been working with out of HSBC Bank, which is one of the biggest banks in the world. And this whistleblower has brought 1,000 pages of internal bank documents which show a multi-billion, probably trillion-dollar scheme to money launder through the bank with the obvious compliance and knowledge of senior management. It looks like the bank has become a criminal. I mean, it's like a criminal operation being run internally in the bank. The wire transfers coming into and out of accounts show millions of dollars of activity in accounts that were established through identity theft. Evidently, what the bank has done is they've stolen the legitimate names and social security numbers of people who don't even know their names are being used to have accounts established at HSBC, and then millions of dollars run through these accounts in money laundering. It's an incredible scandal. And we have 1,000 pages of the internal bank documentation that John Cruz, the whistleblower, took with him when he was basically fired from the bank for trying to get the bank's attention to this scandal.
And you were talking yesterday with Alex about all the money laundering from the drug gangs. All that stuff has been through banks like Wachovia by the hundreds of millions, if not billions.
Well, I see, this is the thing. I mean, if you think about it for a minute, the drug business and the drug cartel in Mexico, let's say they do $2 trillion in revenue annually. I mean, how heavy $2 trillion is in $100 bills? It's worthless. It has to get into the banking system, and the banks provide a vehicle for it. Then the federal government comes along. When they catch a bank like HSBC, they give them a fine. Well, these major banks have $2 billion reserved just to pay fines. As long as the bank is not considered a criminal bank and nobody goes to jail, the fine is just a cost of doing business, and they go on their merry way, laundering trillions of dollars of business around the world illegally.
We've got such widespread corruption with Wall Street, a lot of anger, obviously, at Wall Street, but there's a big crony capitalism problem, too, based in the Washington and the leadership there. What do you see as the guiding light to sort of reforming the larger scandal with the housing collapse and everything going on? How are we ever going to get out of this mess, Doctor?
Well, I think we need to first of all, get down to the honesty of it. I mean, a good idea would just be fire everybody in Washington, reduce the size of the federal government, the corruption coming through the federal government. Anybody who doesn't think this is government managed and government complicit is crazy. I'm sure by the time we get down to this, the bottom of these money laundering scandals that I'm investigating, it's not only going to be drug money and terrorist money. I'm sure we're going to find part of the stimulus money going into money laundering. I mean, if they got $700 or $800 billion in stimulus money, I'm sure the politicians in Washington get a high level, and the cronies setting up these fake Solyndra energy businesses can find a way to take 10% of that and skim it off through money laundering and pocket it. That's the problem. There's so much money. With trillions of dollars of deficits, we're so awash in money that we've set up an invitation for criminals in the government and banks to participate, to have a field day and enrich themselves in the process.
Sure. And then
see, the key realization is we're not in this global crisis by accident. The globalists, the banks, the government leaders, sure, borrow trillions. What difference does it make? They're never going to repay it. And while they're borrowing it, they can be stealing it. They can be running programs of giveaways. The giveaways, when you take a look at the money on the border, $2 trillion in the drug trade, the idea is to keep it open so the banks can continue to launder the money. The illegal immigrants are a detail. Nobody really cares about them. Right. They're just kind of incidental to the whole operation, which is really about the drug war. Keep the border open so the drug war